Well, welcome everybody. My name is Andrew Evans and I'm the Director of Youth Leadership at Summit Pacific College, and I'm just excited to be with you to talk about social media. Social media is everywhere. It's not something that's brand new, although there are new aspects of it. So I want to talk to you as leaders and pastors and parents about it, particularly in children's, youth, and young adult ministry, and what does that look like? First, I want to go to Scripture. I want to go to Acts chapter 17. Paul is in Athens, and we see that he's waiting for his friends to show up. And while he's there, he's walking around, and he notices that all these altars and to these unknown gods and these idols, and he's quite disturbed. And so what does he do? In Acts 17:17, it says this, so he was reasoning in the synagogue with the Jews and the God-fearing Gentiles. That's where he went first. And he went there and he was sharing about Jesus there and in the marketplace every day with those who happened to be present. What's interesting about that idea of the marketplace, this was the place of commerce. This is the place people gathered for financial and relational business. And so they got together. And so a lot of people were there, influential people, everyday people. But what I see when I read this and what I hear is that Paul went to where the people are, where the people gather. And that's important for us because when dealing with social media, it's not just some abstract digital space, but in the world we live in the world our children and our youth are growing up in, these digital spaces, this is their real world. This is where they live. And so social media, we need to explore social media and what it means for ministry because this is the marketplace. This is where they gather, and we need to go where they are to share the news of Jesus and help them understand who he is and what he's done for them. And so when we look at social media, what is social media? It's kind of hard to really define social media besides, well, it's social and it's media. But there's different ideas, different elements. So social networking sites, places like Facebook that get people together and connect them. You can connect with people from your past, people who don't live in your community, all over the world. So things like social networking sites, as well as user-generated sites, places like YouTube, where you create a video, you upload a video. TikTok's one of these as well, and Instagram has these elements. And there's another element too, trading and marketing sites, things like Craigslist or Marketplace on Facebook. We all tend to use that. And then there's play and game sites, places like Twitch or Mixer. If you're a gamer, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Or even not a serious gamer like that, but like things like Clash of Clans or Clash Royale or different games where you have a clan or a group of people that you connect with and that you talk to and you do things with online. And so that tends to be social media. That's our digital marketplace. And this is where your young people are gathering, particularly during COVID. This is very, very relevant. 3 of the top social media gathering places that are on the internet right now is Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. And what's interesting is that YouTube became the #1 site used by teenagers during COVID-19, which makes sense because they're at home and they're what else are they going to do? And they don't tend to watch TV, but they watch a lot of YouTube. But TikTok is huge as well. Another one for gamers particularly is Twitch or Mixer. Those are places where young people go to gather to, like jump on your Xbox or on your PlayStation, and you can be with a whole bunch of other people and your friends, and you can be together. And that's what's really happening, is it's together. And so I know there's a lot of research out there about social media, the good and the bad and the ugly, but I just want to share a couple of benefits I believe I see in social media for ministry in particular, and costs of social media. And then I want to talk about some tips maybe and some skills that we can help our youth develop. The first benefit is that social media really provides a place to belong to those that feel outcast in society. So we all know in schools, in our churches, and in life and work, there's always a few people that don't seem to fit. And maybe you were one of those people growing up, and you understand what they're going through, but you have them in your youth ministry and your kids' ministries, and they don't seem to quite connect with anybody. What social media does is it allows them to broaden their places where they can find where they can belong. Obviously, this is dangerous as well as good, but there's a lot of good in this, and we can really use social media in our ministries to help youth feel like they belong and that this is a place that they can have ownership with. A second benefit is connectivity. With social media, we are able to connect with people that we haven't seen in years, people all over the world. I remember when I was in grade 5, I had a pen pal in Winnipeg. I thought that was across, the entire universe, how far that was away. I'd write him a letter, and a few months later, I'd get another letter back. But now it's instantaneously. I text my friends in Winnipeg, and within seconds, they text me back. And so it's a different world we live in, but it allows us to stay connected, and that can be a very positive thing in the world we live in. Particularly since the research shows us that in the Lower Mainland especially, that people tend to be very, very lonely. The third benefit is that it enables you to share ideas. It helps you to, if you have an idea, you can throw it up on TikTok or YouTube or Instagram or Facebook, and all of a sudden thousands of people can have access to that idea. So we're able to share the kingdom of God and the good news of Jesus to people all over the world in a way that we haven't been able to in the past. And so thinking of those benefits, as your group, what you should do when you break off later and have discussion is you should be thinking, what are the benefits of social media for our ministry? Or if you're a parent, what are the benefits of social media for our family and for my kids? Those are some questions maybe you want to ask yourself. But along with the benefits, there's also the other side, and there's the costs to social media. And one of the biggest costs is what we call FOMO, F-O-M-O, which is fear of missing out. So FOMO is not a new term. It's been around for a while. It's been studied quite a bit. But what social media tends to do is it creates this need to always be on, because I have to see what's going on all the time in case I miss out on something. And so youth are having trouble sleeping because they're always going to check their phones in case they're missing something out. And not only are they worried about missing out on something, social media now provides them an avenue to see all the wonderful things that they're missing that they wouldn't know before. Ignorance is bliss, as we would say. When I was growing up, if an event happened, I wouldn't know about it until I went to school. But now you know about it instantaneously, and you know if you've been left out. And so there's this fear of being left out, and it goes back to belonging. We just want to belong somewhere. Particularly young people, youth, and adolescents, they have this sense of identity of who I am is tied up in where I belong. And so if social media is telling them that they don't belong or they're missing out, then there's a great fear for that. And I think that's a real fear that we have to take seriously and to look at and have conversations and dialogue with our youth about that. The second cost is what we would call the happiness effect. So there was a researcher that explored social media and the effect it had on particularly young adults. And one of the findings that she found was that young adults were saying that I feel like I always have to be on, and I always have to have a positive message or appear happy, because people don't want the negative. They just want to see everything is good and everything is fine. We don't want to go beyond surface like that. So there's a sense that they always felt, because they looked at other posts, and all the other posts were always positive and, oh, look what I'm doing today. I'm doing amazing things. And the happiness effect is that they feel like they have to reproduce that as well. If they're not happy, then there's something wrong with them. And so we lose out on these feelings of disappointment and hurt and anger. The social media is saying that doesn't belong here. And so there's no place for them to really express that. And so we see other accounts popping up, like fake accounts or spam accounts, where they can go on anonymously and they can express their hurt and their pain or anger and lash out at people, but they do it in an anonymous way. And that's our third cost, is that young people feel that the only way they can be authentic and truly express who they are is if they're anonymous. Because if they express their feelings and what's going on inside their heart and in their mind, and it's contrary to what culture is saying, what the norm is, then they get lambasted. And we've really seen this if we look at our social media feeds in the last few months concerning all the social issues that have arisen. And if somebody were to post something that is contrary to what is being said, you see the negative and the hurtful comments that are happening. And so there's this sense that young people are losing. They're trying to find themselves, but they're losing a sense of who they are, because they're not free to express who they are. There's no safe place for them. And so that really brings us to, as a youth ministry, how do we provide that safe place? So we're going to talk about some of those digital skills in a moment. But before we do that, I just want to give some parents and leaders some tips on social media that I found helpful, and hopefully you will find helpful, and questions for you to discuss with each other, discuss with those that are overseeing the young people and the children particularly. And so the first question I think is significant is, what age should youth or young adults or children get social media? And you'll get a PDF with these questions that you'll be able to go over and talk. All the stuff that we've talked about here, you'll have in front of you. And so that's really the question. Now, my initial reaction, because it's easy, is to say, hey, listen, what does the social media app say? Right, so at Instagram, last time I checked, it was 14 years of age, and Facebook, it could be 13, maybe 14, but there's usually an age around there, and they have it as a guideline because it's they're trying to say, listen, this is not really appropriate for those that are younger. But we know that kids as young as 7 and 8 have Instagram accounts and have Facebook accounts, and so we have to really be discerning in when we get our youth or our students or our kids phones or social media, and we allow that to happen in their lives. And it's really a personal decision. Now, for parents, this is really your decision. And so as leaders in youth ministry and pastors, we need to be aware of what parents are saying. There's a great movement down the States. It was called Wait Until 8. And so all parents in one class decided that they were going to all wait till grade 8 before they got any of their kids a phone. Because I remember my kid being in grade 5 and coming home and said, yeah, one of his friends has a phone in class. And so all of a sudden there's peer pressure from their friends and their classmates to have cell phones and to have a data plan and to have social media and to be allowed free access to everything. And so we have to disciple through that question, at what age should they get it? Because in the world we live in, it's not about if they get it, it's when. Because once they grow up, that's part of the world. And in some ways, to even function in the world, there's elements of social media that they need to be involved in. And so our job is to help disciple them in that. What's it going to look like for them when they do get social media, and what age will we start those lessons? Right? And know this, that in some apps, there's lots of great parental controls on some phones. I know the iPhone has great parental controls. That's what we have and our kids have. And you can set hours of use for any of the apps. You can set hours of use for the internet. You can set whether they can even have access to the internet. Like, there's a lot of great parental controls on that. And if you're wondering about that, feel free to email me, and I can give you some tips along with that as well. Now, the next question here is, when your kids do get and your students do get social media, should you follow them? Now, as a parent, my first and always my response is yes, of course. As a parent, you want to be following their Instagram accounts. You want to, if they're on Facebook, be Facebook friends. If they're on TikTok, be connected to them on TikTok. And the reason for that is not that you're trying to be Big Brother watching them, but that you're helping them understand that this is a way that they're staying connected, not just to the world around them, but to you as well. It's a way for you to connect into the world of your teens. Go back to the marketplace. Right? This is where they're living. So it allows you to go to their marketplace and be part of that as well. Recognizing, I'd mentioned the fake accounts and the spam accounts, that there's a lot of times that there's a desire for independence. And so in order to do that, they create these fake accounts. And so like a fake Instagram account would be like, a few friends instead of everybody. And then that's where they would show their real pictures, the ones that don't make it to Instagram, or they would express their real thoughts with each other. And so having a conversation with your kids and with your students about fake Instagram accounts and other fake accounts I think is important. So they, number one, understand that you know about it, and number two, helps them to be discerning in the way that they engage in social media. We need to remember this, that particularly as they're transitioning from childhood to adolescence and adolescence to adulthood, that there's this desire for independence, but there's also a need for boundaries. What tends to happen is young people will push away from the boundaries because they want independence. And so people who are leading them or who oversee them will release the boundaries completely. But what they still need boundaries, and they need just them to be gradually opened up so that they still know where the edge is, but they can push a little further to see how far they can go in order to discover who they are. And so boundaries are still important, particularly in social media, but you have to give them more and more freedom as they get older. And that, again, is a personal decision up to you, right? This is their world. Their world is social media at this moment. And who knows, in 10 years it'll be something different. So we have to prepare them for that. We can't prepare them for the world we grew up in. We have to prepare them for the world they are growing up in. And for that, it might be, it'd be uncomfortable for some of us because we don't like social media. We're very against social media, or we like it too much and we're too much into social media. We have to help them find boundaries, but also grow in their independence. And so those are some tips. And if you have questions, feel free to email me, and I'm happy to have a conversation with you about that. And so some digital skills that I think we need to think about when it comes to social media and ministry. We have to teach our students how to be authentic without being anonymous. We have to provide a place for them where they can express their real thoughts, where they can wrestle with theological and moral issues and life issues, in a place where it's safe and where they are really them and it's not something anonymous. Another skill is, and I think really important, is we have to help students and even ourselves practice being alone, bored, and still. Nothing else going on. How many times when we're like in a grocery store and we're waiting in line, I know this happens to me all the time, and I'm like, oh, I pull up my phone because I don't want to just be still and be bored. Right? If I'm waiting for somebody, I'll pull up my phone and play my Clash Royale or some kind of game on my phone because I don't want to be bored. But what's interesting is that the spiritual discipline of solitude is about being alone and being quiet so we can hear the voice of God. So if you want a refresher, go back to hear the story of Samuel and Eli, where Samuel, I think it's Samuel chapter 3, where Samuel is being called by God and he doesn't recognize the voice. And Eli has to teach him that's the voice of God. We have to teach our young people what the voice of God sounds like, to listen for it, how to listen for it. And in order for us to teach them, we need to know how to hear the voice of God too. So practice being alone, bored, and still. And then lastly, know when to quit. 2 ways to quit. Number one, you quit just temporarily. It's like a Sabbath. You know what? I'm too involved in this aspect of social media. I'm going to take a break for a week or for a day or for an hour or for a month or for a year or whatever it looks like. But you're taking a temporary break in order to kind of free yourself from the claws that has in you. Now, and teaching our young people to do the same thing. Again, they're going to be wrestling with FOMO, right? If they say, well, I need to know what's going on. But helping them, that helps them understand they don't need to know what's going on. And then the second way to quit is just quit forever. And that's if something is really, really negative and really bad. You say, you know what, I'm just going to not just deactivate, but I'm going to delete my account and I'm not going back to that. So we need to help students to understand and how to do that. And we need to practice that as well. So hopefully those 3 digital skills: learn to be authentic without being anonymous, practice being alone, bored, and still, and know when to quit. And on the slides that you'll get, I'll have some lists of some YouTube stars, some Instagram stars, some TikTok stars. I did just a quick survey out there and said, who are your favorite stars that you're listening to, the channels. My son loves Dude Perfect. They're a bunch of Christian men who do some fun stuff and antics. And what's interesting, he told me this morning, he said last night they uploaded their newest video, and by this morning they had 7 million views. So that is an incredible influence that they have over our culture. And particularly, a lot of young males love them. I mean, if you haven't watched them, watch Dude Perfect. And just to see this, and so being part of that world and seeing what they're watching and who they're being influenced by, because they're influencing them. And so we want to help lead and guide our youth through that. So here's 3 questions for you. And I'll just read them off here, and then you'll have them on the PDF, so you'll be able to go and discuss these in your group. And if your parents, discuss them with each other. If you're leaders or pastors, discuss them with other leaders or pastors. But the first question is, should we use social media with our parents, with our kids, with our youth, or with our young adults? That's something we have to really wrestle with, particularly if you're in kids ministry or preteen ministry. Do you have an Instagram account? Even though Instagram says they shouldn't have it till 14, is it geared towards the kids or is it geared towards the parents? That's something we have to wrestle with. I can't tell you which way to do it. You have to figure that out on your own, develop your own policies. But do we use social media with our parents? Right? And then if we do use social media, what social media platforms are we going to use? I mean, there's Snapchat, there's Instagram, there's TikTok, there's Facebook. Probably you're not going to use Facebook with your youth, but most likely you're going to use it with your parents. So you got to figure out what social media platforms you're going to use. And thirdly, you need to recognize or decide how you're going to use the social media. So how can we use social media? Is it going to be for communication? Is it just for getting information out to our youth or out to our young adults or out to our parents? And I think this is something more of a significant discussion, are we going to use it for discipleship? And if we are, what is that going to look like? And who are we going to target and how are we going to target them? So those questions, hopefully those are helpful as you wrestle through those questions. Should you use social media? Who should you use it with? What platform should you use? And how can you use it to enhance your ministry and to enhance the life of the young people that you are leading, parenting, and loving? Thanks for joining us today. God bless you.